right, friends, good news, new episode. Thanks for joining us. What a great couple weeks it's been.
Yes.
But I'm really excited about this week.
Me too.
We have Rachel and Zach Stevens in the house. Knoxville.
That's right.
In the house.
That's right.
We met you guys last year at this same trip. First time getting to know each other. And now it's a year later. We saw each other in Alabama. And we love you. We love, obviously, your leadership, Faith Promise, Legendary Church. You're the senior leaders now. Congrats on all that.
Thank you.
But we love the people you are. We love the parents you are.
Yes.
I feel like just getting to hang out. You're like, really?
One of our kids fell on the stairs, but that's not due to parenting.
People don't need to know that.
They don't need to know
okay?
that.
He's carrying
He's
too much
fine.
in his backpack.
Yeah.
That's just a revelation in and of itself.
He's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate about y'all is like, there's a lot of people saying stuff today, a lot of people putting stuff out, and we can just see just from hanging out with you. You guys live this.
Yeah.
You're about this.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
We live it
So-
and we love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
We
glad
love
to have
living
you.
it.
Yep. Okay, so how many kids you got? 3?
We have 3 children.
Okay.
Our oldest is about to turn 10. Our middle's about to turn 6, and our youngest is 3.
And we made sure
Let's go.
they had weird biblical names.
I love it.
So JL, Jael.
Tell us the full names
Okay.
of your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So we
they
have-
got some long names,
We
right?
got long names. So we have JL Emmeline.
And so that was the one from Judges 4 that put the tit and peg in the guy's head. So
Yep, thanks for the
That's what I'm
reminder.
talking
we'll
about.
discuss that with boyfriends. And then actually, when you go to Israel, the place where that happened
Mount
is
Tabor.
is a grade A site, so they like know where that went down. And so when she's old enough to appreciate it, we'll take her there and
Yeah.
we'll get her a nice like necklace. It'll be, but
It'll have a tent peg on
the
it.
boys will
That's
know.
what I'm talking about. Yeah,
The
they should know.
Boys will know.
Yeah, what a
JL
great
Emmeline.
weapon. You know, when someone tries to date her, you say, you want to know why I named her this?
Yeah.
You ever heard this
You wanna
story?
Talk about that
Jesus
necklace.
help
Yeah,
us.
you ever
Yes.
you ever heard stories?
Okay, where did Emmeline come from?
The internet.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm here for it.
So
Okay.
I
Came from a billboard.
JL's hard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the
Oh
hard
yeah.
to
How
put
do you
something
combine
like-
with that?
And so I just was like, Lord, I just want it to be something beautiful because I feel like JL is so is strong and aggressive,
Right.
and I wanted something lovely. And so I thought Emmeline was really pretty. So I just started looking at names, and I just said, "What?"
Love that.
And you
Just feels
found it.
beautiful.
Yep. Okay.
that.
And then 2 boys.
Elisha River.
Yeah, Elisha,
Elisha.
Yeah, that
or
was
Ja?
very specific.
the second of the
Elisha?
prophets.
Come
We
on
have
now.
Elijah.
Double the
Yeah.
miracles, baby.
So
Yes.
could I tell a quick story about
Please,
him? I already
yes.
told you this. And so we had JL like 11 months into being married. We got pregnant with JL.
Surprise!
And
go.
We're
exactly,
responsible.
Very responsible.
Yeah, married now.
And then we decided we wanted to start to grow our family a couple years later, and then had some miscarriages, which we were super blessed. Hadn't had a bunch of
Loss in
Yeah.
our life, really.
and then had 2 miscarriages, which were pretty devastating.
Oh man.
And long story short, we had a big student weekend. God moved in some radical ways.
Yeah.
And so this is in 2017. And every year we pick words for the year that we're going to focus on. A word and a verse, like the kids told you theirs this morning. And so my word for that year was spirit-led. And so I was really pursuing just more of the Holy Spirit's power, leading, control in my life. And that's what the student conference was on. It was awesome. God moved. Then we go home that day, Sunday afternoon, and I hear Rachel crying, so I run back there, and she's
I'm on the toilet.
classy
spot.
having a miscarriage.
Having a miscarriage, bleeding river out. So that would have been my 3rd.
Yeah, and I'm sitting on the like the tub, like right there holding her hand, and I'm just praying, kind of the obligatory prayer you pray, Lord, and I just felt the Holy Spirit rise up in me, and just we started praying. I started praying, Lord, you made those cells originally, you can restore them right now. All the ones that just left, you can replace them, and just felt really, really confident that the Lord had restored this baby. It was pretty early on, so we didn't know boy or girl, anything like that.
Yeah.
And
It was the same weeks, though, as my other 2.
What do you mean?
My other 2 miscarriages. So I miscarried the same time.
Same time of the year.
No.
No.
At the same
gestation.
yeah, I was like, and how many weeks
7
you were?
weeks.
yeah.
Jeez.
So
Sometimes,
and Rachel had obviously prayed this similar prayer over the first 2, and so and women feel it exponentially different than guys do. And so while I'm praying, she's like, "No, I'm having it like
After time, like, that's very sweet, but I need to grieve the loss of my child, and your faith is really getting on me."
And
Yeah, it
Annoying.
felt like how did it feel when he started praying?
Well, he had prayed, and I was like, "This is very sweet. I love that you," but I'm still bleeding. Like, he's
Yeah.
done praying. I'm still like, I'm still cramping like these. My body, I didn't feel in my body a difference. And so I was so frustrated and I felt belittled as a result, you know, because he's sitting there talking about, hey, God's resurrected our child. And I'm sitting there going, hey, I love that, but I prayed that on the floor.
I already tried that
the last time, and God told me no. So I need to be able to start grieving.
Jeez.
And and just so it's not twisted, Rachel is usually the bigger faith person.
Than you.
We both have the gift of faith, but there's lots of times where I'm leaning on Rachel's. Because I will have studied too much, I'll know too much, or whatever, and you're too much of the world. And then Rachel, either way. So we're praying. Funny enough, Rachel's a very anointed worship leader, and we're singing this song in church at the time. That anthem, what's it called?
The
Creed.
The Creed, come on.
Oh yeah, so Rachel.
Jeez, so you start singing that.
I do. She does not. No.
Can
I
you
do.
sing?
Zero. Can I sing?
Okay, this kind of faith.
Hilarious, dude.
You
Hilarious.
got this kind of faith.
And
He's such a bad singer.
It is not hitting well with Rachel, bro. It's not hitting well.
Yeah.
So I'm singing that.
He comes in from the gym just honoring the Lord, blessing him, and I am furious.
She's so mad. And I finally have to. We had great examples as parents. Like we're rarely
Got
like
good communication.
this mad. This mad. Whatever. I'm sure I deserve it often, but she was really mad. I said, hey, just let me.
We made an agreement.
Give me grace until they say he's gone or the baby's gone. And so she had a DNC. She don't know what a DNC is. It's where they clean you out.
Yep, I know exactly what
So I'd
it is.
had 2 already.
Okay.
With
Which
the
is
first 2, and that's what
Two
they.
unheard of, right?
Traumatic.
2 back to back, or
No.
no.
They'll just clean you out. So we tried.
Oh no, with both the previous miscarriages.
After a really healthy pregnancy, like it was, they wanted to send me after the second to
Got it.
high risk.
Yeah.
And I said, and the Lord just told me right there, there's nothing wrong with your body. And so I just looked at her. I didn't even know. It just came out of my mouth before I could even catch it. It was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I said, okay, great.
So we go in. So I go.
So I had called them and they said, hey, this is what's happening. And we're going to have to look at you tomorrow because your other 2, we'd had to do DNCs. So this will be different. So we're going to do an ultrasound tomorrow and see what we've got to do.
So I go to the gym. that morning. I'm an early person, so I go to the gym at 5. Me and my partner, we walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes before we start. And he was my best friend at the time. We're walking, and I'm telling him, and I can feel how weird it is from him listening. And he's like, dude, I'm so sorry. And I was like, there's no reason to be sorry. There's no reason. And I'm in the gym singing this song. I'm not.
Yeah.
I can't sing, bro. It's rough. And so we go to the doctor to get that.
Let me just
DNC.
paint the scene for you. If you've ever been in a waiting room at a doctor's office,
I was going to leave this part out.
No, it's not a great spot anyway. And I'm in a dark place. I'm not in a good spot.
yeah, of course.
And my husband is like humming next, and it's not in tune or anything.
Nerve. So wait a minute. How long had you guys been married up to this point?
At that point, it'd been a little bit. Been 5 years. 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, when we get 5, 18, 12. So at that point, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm singing that song in the waiting room.
And then he's singing the song in the ultrasound room. He's standing in the corner and he's like singing it. This lady is like, wanding you. I mean, like you're early in your pregnancy. It's not like it's not the on top. It's
gritty.
We're in that spot. And it does take them a while to like find, she's searching and he's just sitting in the corner. I believe in God. And
Bro, but like what
You're like
else?
ready to throw the baton.
I'm like apologizing. I'm like, I don't know this guy.
Like I would do the same thing. It's like, what else do you do in that moment? There's a point, especially as a husband, where some of it is out of reach because it's our wives carrying this thing.
Yeah.
What else do we do but sing?
Yeah. Well, and the other ones, I didn't feel that way.
No,
that was a Holy
This was
Spirit.
like this ain't happening again. Kind
Did
of
that
thing.
shift you at all? That the last 2 he wasn't really like that, but this one he was.
I didn't pay attention to it. So what I had done, and we wrote a devotional about this. So we do a devotional for our church every year, and I'd written this story. And this is what I did. And this is a mistake I think a lot of believers make, is you asked God for it once. And so he said no. And because he said no, I applied it to anything similar to that in the future. So when I asked my first miscarriage, I didn't ask for resurrection. I didn't even know what had happened, what I would experience. My second one, I knew it was happening, and I asked the Lord to resurrect my baby. And he didn't. And I had applied to this situation the same answer. But it was a different situation. It was a new day. And so I didn't seek the Lord's face for what I longed for. I just received death.
Wow.
And so now we got it from Chris Valentin at Bethel, but they say push. So pray until something happens.
Yeah.
You know, so you hear yes or no, and then if you heard no, move on. If you heard yes,
Push until something happens.
Yeah, what a
pushing.
though.
And so, but you can finish.
Yeah,
That's
they
such
did.
a strong word.
Yeah, they found the heartbeat. Took them a little while, but there's no blood in my uterus.
Come on.
So they look at this. She's like, "Hey, there's
But
no
there's
blood in
blood,
you."
but there-
Yeah,
yeah.
so they do an internal exam. She's got dried blood all on her glove, and she's like, "Hey, I know you weren't lying. Like, I know you were bleeding, and I can't tell you what was happening because everything looks, perfect." And I looked at her right in the eye. Said, "You're gonna think I'm crazy, but the Lord resurrected my baby." And she said, "Well,
dude.
I guess we'll just go with that." I said, "Okay, great."
Yeah, I mean they've got
Next.
to see this kind of stuff in hospitals, but
Oh my
what
God, I
a
have
powerful.
chills.
Yeah, I want to hear about your other son in a second, but I think you hit something like hearing about you going through that. How important is it in pain, in tragedy, as a couple, to lean on each other? I mean, I know you're annoyed,
Yeah.
but when you look later, like how important is that for somebody listening? Maybe that's
I think
You know.
our first miscarriage, we did not.
Yeah,
I
this was-
see how
this
it
was big.
destroys marriages.
Yeah.
miscarriages.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
'cause
Trauma in general. Or
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
grief in general, but you're grieving differently, and we didn't grieve together.
Because that first one was like 3 years in or something like that.
2 years. 2.5 years, 3 years.
And then she really grieved with her mom. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't know what it was. Like I
Yeah.
had no idea. And for a lot of men, it's me specifically, maybe I'm just a terrible guy, but the baby didn't feel
Real yet.
real in any way. Like honestly, I have 3, and they don't feel super real to me until they're like 2. You know, I can punch them and
No,
wrestle
I've
with
heard
them.
guys say that before.
Yeah.
It's just an idea because you're not the one carrying the
Yeah.
baby.
I remember Rachel's mom was there when we got back from the first one, which was a mistake. Not that Cheryl's unreal. I call her mom. She's awesome. She shouldn't have been there. This should have been us. And whenever we were in a place, then we could have onboarded them. So Cheryl was there. As soon as I came in, they were sitting on the couch. And then I remember I walked in the bathroom to call and tell my mom. And while I'm saying it, like I break down, and I didn't realize the weight of that. So go back to what you were saying around.
Oh yeah, no, I just think we didn't grieve together because we didn't know how.
I mean, how do you prepare to grieve this? How,
Oh,
how
yeah.
do you? There's
Yeah.
no.
And-
Even when you hear of the stories, there's nothing like enduring it yourself.
No, and what's the rule
know,
of thought?
there's no
It's like
playbook for
someone
that.
just
Oh, no.
said this the other night. It's like you're not grieving until, I think you said it the other night. It's a year until you're actually grieving.
Well,
like,
somebody who talked about loss when you lose someone, it's a year. I don't remember who said it,
but you were right
but
there,
We were
huh?
talking in a group, and she said, "Hey, well, it's like really a year after before you really start your grieving process." And I would say I would disagree with that on some levels. I think it just kind of depends on your relationship. But
sure.
I just didn't know. I didn't know what I needed. And I think we lack grace for the person that we're married to when you're both doing something for the first time, having the wherewithal to take a step back and say, hey,
Great.
they don't know what they need.
Great.
They don't know what I need. I don't know what I need. How can I expect him to know what I need if I don't know what I need?
Yeah.
And then, but the second time was different. We processed on the back end, hey, we didn't do that together. Like, we aren't doing this together.
And you can't use the fact that you grieve differently as an excuse not to grieve together, right? And so
It's good. It's good.
just because she, like, may need to externally process or whatever, because, like, whenever all that's coming out, for me, it feels negative. And negativity is like a pet peeve of mine. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, like, I look, we're so blessed. Like, but it wasn't negativity. It was just, I have all these thoughts, and which ones are right, which ones are wrong, and I have to say them to decipher through it. But yeah, it was massive to be able to grieve and walk through that together.
Yeah, but because I had received death already at
Yeah.
the third time, it didn't matter what he said. So I was just waiting. Honestly, I was waiting for the doctor to tell me, to say I was right, so that I could look at him and say, see, I was
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
That's why I heard Joseph was just talking about this. He said, when you're in those moments, the holiest thing you can do sometimes is just hang on. And sometimes in marriage, we sign up to not give up on each other. Not for everything to always be great, but we sign up for the pain, the suffering. And,
Yep.
I honor you, man, for just singing and humming in the corner.
So his name's Elisha River.
Okay.
And so Elisha, Elisha, came after Elijah.
Had a double portion.
A double portion. And then river is for the river of the Holy Spirit. So it talks about it in Ezekiel and in Revelation. Wherever the river of the Holy Spirit goes, it brings life. And so there was death, but the Holy Spirit brought life into Rachel. So when he asked why is his name a river, it's because he brings life wherever he goes, even where there's death. So
Come on.
And inside of Mom there was death there, but the Holy Spirit brought life into you, just like John the Baptist. We feel like he was infused with the Holy Spirit at that level. Yeah. And so
and he'll tell you.
Yeah, he'll let you know how it is. Okay, so tell me about your third kid then. There's one more.
Benaiah Valor.
Benaiah Valor. Okay, let's hear it.
You have to be a Bible scholar to know Benaiah Valor.
Listen, the only scholar at the table is you two. All right.
No. But most people know David. David killed Goliath.
Yeah.
So David hands it off to Solomon. But David was a man of war, so there was a lot of beef going on in the camp.
Yeah.
And so he had a cat named Benaiah, who he said, if you read it, Benaiah was to squash all that. So there's like 2 chapters of Benaiah went and killed. And so, but David also had these mighty men, right? So that's Benaiah.
Yeah.
But David had his men of valor, his 3 and his 30. And so valor is a warrior. And so,
we just felt like when we were praying for him, like what his name should be, like that was that God had set him apart to stand. Like I believe this is just something that God gave me as I raised my children, that I would teach them to stand in the gap for God's people.
That's right.
So
in Ezekiel 22, it says, "I would
look for someone."
Stand in the gap between me and my people, and I found no one.
No one.
And we're just committed as long as like Stevens are there, because that's who we're responsible for.
Yeah.
It just won't be said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that he in particular, that there's just a spirit on, like, just like a special thing God was going to give him to fight. Like he is. Ooh.
He's a fighter, man. We were out there playing football. He just came out of nowhere, like grabbed my leg, gnawing on me.
He's
Tennessee boys.
He's the Tennessee boys.
I
That's
love it.
awesome.
Okay.
Okay,
Go Balls, go.
that's so cool. Tell us a little bit about your guys' season of life. You're second generation pastors, third generation?
Yes, second.
Dad started a church?
Yeah, Dad's been at 2 churches, and so he didn't. There was a church. Long story short, they just were passionate. They would say that they want to make it hard to go to hell from Tennessee, East Tennessee, and so we were at a church in Louisiana. My dad was pastoring, and they said, "Hey, Dad like us, like just pushers. Like it's never enough." In Acts 13:46, Paul quotes a prophecy from Isaiah 49 that says that he's always expected the gospel to go from shore to shore, from generation to generation. Like it was, even when it was a national deal in Israel, it was always supposed to be. So we say, until it's too small. So, but that was Dad. So Dad.
Real evangelistic heart by
100%.
nature, reaching lost.
He's a first generation Christian. So
That's
like
cool.
he was.
Oh, and his whole family.
Yeah,
believer.
he was like way lost.
100%.
Really?
Oh yeah.
From Tennessee
Crack
originally?
addict.
He was in Chattanooga, drug addict in Chattanooga, radically saved, and then he went to Louisiana. That's how we met Joseph, who you've had
The
on
Ranzas,
here,
yep.
Ranzas, the wild men and women down there.
Wild Childs. Because we're in that season naturally as church planners. We're a year and a half in. The sexy stage is over.
Yeah.
It's like,
Dead and
we got our
gone.
church. This is amazing. God called us. Now it's like, these people are broken.
Yeah.
Because they're real lost people.
That's
it's not
exactly
just
right.
swapping churches.
And that's why
it's people that
Jesus
ain't
told
heard
Peter.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus told Peter, "Hey, if you love me, then feed my sheep."
Yeah.
Everybody at this table loves people.
Yeah.
We love people.
Yeah.
But loving people isn't enough to sustain serving people, and so that's why we serve no matter what.
Love that.
There's been people who've told us they'd ride or die with us forever. They have podcasts that are strictly for hammering us now, like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But
fun.
And a lot of people stop trusting. But we don't, like whenever Jesus said, "If you love me, feed my sheep," unless they hurt you, he never gave those caveats. 3 times in a row. "If you love me, then feed my sheep, and they will know if you love me." He told them that earlier. They will know you love me by how you love people.
Yep.
And so either way, like then Mom and Dad came to Tennessee, and Tennessee's never really seen a church like that.
Like that.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
wild.
In particular, East Tennessee, because of the Appalachian region.
Yeah.
Okay.
The poorest region in America, the lower Appalachian region.
Jeez.
I mean, you can drive 2 hours and there's still cities with dirt floors. You know,
You go up in the
bottom of
mountains.
Kentucky. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so how did you guys come? How did you meet then? Like, how did you come into the picture?
So I was raised in the military. My dad was in the Navy. And
Yeah.
so we moved to a suburb of Knoxville.
Yeah.
And we
Oak Ridge, where the
Oak
atom
Ridge.
bomb was built,
The Secret
Okay.
City
The
is
Secret
what it's
City.
called.
The atom bomb from World War II.
Yeah.
was built.
The one
in-
Lewis was talking about.
Like, was that Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
I was like
yeah.
trying to remember
In
the word.
East Tennessee.
Yeah, in Oak Ridge.
Tennessee. Yeah, my dad knows the story better because the church started in Oak Ridge and moved out to Knoxville.
Yeah.
But
What?
there needed to be a vote for something like in that time.
Yeah.
And like they needed somebody from Tennessee, and the senator or whatever said, "Where in Tennessee are you going to build the lab?" And it ended up being in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So
What a trip.
yeah.
It's wild. So we moved to Oak Ridge, and we ended up at the church where my family did at Faith Promise.
Okay.
And
One thing led to another, and
one thing alone. So we met in student camp. We are at
best
in
place to
group.
meet someone.
In
right.
group, that's right, in youth group, and we hated each other's guts.
Sounds like a good
Couldn't
love
stand
story.
that guy. He didn't really know I existed, but I didn't.
You knew he did.
Well,
you
he
didn't
was
like
the
him.
pastor's son, and let me tell you,
Yeah, I
every
mean,
girl,
it's giant too. He can't walk into a room without being noticed.
Yeah,
My
he's
God.
they the Stevens boys.
I was rounder at that season of life.
But they, very charismatic, super fun. All the girls wanted to date one of the pastor's sons, and I was like, y'all, they poop too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody wipes their butt.
She had some pride issues, Billy.
Yeah.
I had some.
Maybe.
Don't we
The
all?
Lord delivered
Don't we
her.
all?
Maybe.
baby? Don't we all?
So I was
See that she's the
humbled.
one with the
Oh my
pride.
God.
She's the one with the pride issues.
I didn't ask you to comment.
Well, I'm just saying.
I told you something, Billy.
Listen.
So we ended up doing some ministry together. Actually, we were at the same community college. I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
I had a scholarship to go somewhere else, a music scholarship to leave. And the Lord told me I was driving. I was so mad. And the Lord said, you have to stay and go to, it's Pellissippi State. And I called it the 13th grade. I was too good for that. And I told the Lord, I'm not going to the 13th grade. I'm getting out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I wanted to go to Carson Newman. It was a private college north, and which isn't very much better.
No.
Jefferson City.
I was
Now
gonna
that I
bring
think
that up.
back on it,
It's
it wasn't
not
much of
great.
an
I was going to
upgrade.
bring that up.
But the Lord told me to stay, and I did. And we ended up doing some ministry on campus together. Our young adults pastor at the time asked us, I was leading young women's groups, and they were growing. Zach was leading young men's groups, and they were growing. And he said, hey, I need you two to go do something together. I was like, I would rather not. And I watched.
She needed the Lord.
Yeah, the Lord had to do it.
And
The Lord had to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I did. But I watched Zach literally like the way he shared the gospel.
Yeah.
He wants lost people to know Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, gosh, that is the most attractive thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And we became friends, and then we dated, and then we got married.
Yeah, which is I think is something for. I know y'all are attracting young adults, who want godly relationships, and you're never going to find those at a club
Amen.
or anything like that.
Real talk.
I love what Andy Stanley says. Be the person you're looking for is looking for, and so man, that's why I would tell people you run as hard as you can after
Beautiful.
Jesus, and you look to
And
the
you'll
right
find-
and to the left, and the one that's right there doing the same thing probably doesn't even know you exist. There they are.
Yeah, and God's
So
voice
true.
is so paramount in that process
Huge.
because, I love the prophetic thing of like, I was going to go do this. The Lord said no, because similar thing happened to us.
Yep.
To where,
That was our same exact story.
same story. Because I'm not a pastor's kid. You know what I mean?
And he wasn't a pastor.
I
either.
wasn't a pastor either. I came
Okay.
into the church drug addict, promiscuous,
I was like the
running
daughter.
the world. She
I was
like
the daughter of the house. Like I had been there. Very
Yeah.
few families were still at the church, like that started the church. My whole family left. I was the only one that was there, other than maybe 2 other pastors on staff that had been there at the conception of the church. And they're old, they were my parents' age, and then it was me.
Yeah.
Everybody else, in and out, all that stuff like that. So
She
when
had gotten
he
this
came
prophetic
in-
word. I came in and like we hadn't met yet.
No, so he had started attending church, and I knew him as the kid who had cancer.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know who he was, but you see this 20-something-year-old walking in and out of church because he's throwing up between the services and he's bald.
I have no eyebrows. Like everyone knew me just as a kid with cancer. Yeah. Shows up on Wednesdays.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible.
That was him.
I'll take it.
That was my name.
But I didn't know who he was. I mean, you're walking out of church after worship set out of the
Yeah.
green room, and you go out into the atrium, and he's running into the restroom. That's the only thing I knew of him.
Yeah.
But I had a scholarship. I was a cheerleader in high school, so I had cheerleading scholarship. Was going to go to University of Montana, and the week I was supposed to leave, we had revival services, kind of like spiritual renewal. And is that me? And my pastor was like, "Okay, this will be the last thing you lead worship at before we send you off. Like, we're gonna send you, the whole thing you're sending before you leave, all that stuff like that." And this prophet gave me this wild word, like spot on. You're running. I was tired of being little Randy. I wanted to go be big girl.
Yeah.
I wanted to be taken
Yes.
seriously. I don't want to be known by my parents' stuff that happened. Like I was just ready to get away, and that was my escape. And he was just like Jonah and Nineveh, like you're assigned here, you're running the other direction. And it was just like very clear. So I called my recruiter on Friday, retracted my acceptance on the team, and I met him on Sunday.
I met that Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. And
good.
it's just, I love how God does that because people want you to be in relationships for what feels good, what their friends say, what their parents want, but not what God said.
And there's no question, besides following Jesus, the number 2 most important decision you make is who you marry.
Yeah.
Like it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like that's second, third, and fourth.
Right.
It makes or breaks life for sure.
So what's this season of leadership? Like, what does leadership look like to you guys right now? Like, moving from relationships more to the church side. What do you do? What is a leader, in your opinion? Like, what are you responsible for? What's life
Here, can we ask this? What does your normal week look like, Monday to Sunday?
Oh,
on
that's a
an
good
average
question.
week, what's your guys' flow?
So
Kids, meeting with people, everything.
yeah.
Yeah, you guys do staff
Because
meetings or
leadership is in
anything?
your
or like-
house, it's in your marriage, it's everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, we're getting ready to start. So we just moved into our. I just
that
moved
keeps
into my
moving.
dream house. Okay, so
Congratulations.
yeah, we're super pumped.
Praise the
So
Lord.
we've spent years. So before we actually got married, we talked about this house. Okay, our
That's
kids
my
are here.
man.
It's
They're
okay. We
amazing.
love Valor.
Oh my gosh, my
Addie was in the last
daughter's in
episode.
like 5 episodes,
That's
so
great.
she just pops
You're
in.
good.
She's on my lap.
They're alive.
We're not that polished.
So we sold our house in 2020 to build this house, and cost of wood increased by 300%. Couldn't build our house. We've moved in and out of ghetto apartments,
Yeah.
in and out with our parents, just all over. And we just finished building it.
Okay.
And so our new flow, I'm super pumped. It's about to start. So I have, I'll do a group on Sunday nights. I do an alpha group on Sunday night. So we have services on Sunday. We have 3 on Sunday morning, 1 on Sunday afternoon. I have alpha group Sunday night. I do 2 Mondays a month. I do a lunchtime prayer gathering thing for women. Okay. And then I homeschool my kids. So they go to a
Talk about
co-op.
leadership.
Yeah, it's intense.
Better be called to that.
Yeah, you're pretty amazing at it, though.
Yeah, you are incredible. If we haven't said it enough,
amazing,
Rachel,
Mom.
you're
really
amazing.
are. I feel set free. I'm like, let's run into the water, see what happens.
Yeah, bro. Like,
Exactly right.
yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
So they go to a co-op twice a week on Monday and Wednesday. So I really cram those days full of time with other people.
Great.
Good, smart.
And then we have a podcast we do together. Usually twice a month. We record those on Wednesdays.
Yeah. An episode every week, but we record.
Yeah,
twice.
we record 2
Knock them
at a
too
time.
smart, dude.
And then that's pretty much. I teach some voice lessons as well, and so I teach a couple lessons.
So a
It's
lot
awesome.
of
So
your
you're a singer.
discipleship happens on Sunday nights and Mondays in those groups.
Yeah, well, and I do a lot of coffee, so just
Yeah, that never changes, right? It's
Just-
like whenever they can, I'll see you for an hour.
just show up. Just
Yeah.
show up. So people just I literally am they're like, hey, I was wondering if you had time. So great. I'm going to be at my house from these hours to these hours. Just be here.
Just show up. Let's do it.
So I have a girl, her name's Sabrina, and she was talking about she's like, hey, I'm looking for, and I just really felt like, hey, I need to honor this request she has. She's looking for somebody to encourage her. She's got a prophetic gifting.
Mm-hmm.
She's not near family at all, single, younger woman. And I just said, hey, whenever you need to be at my house, just be at my house.
It's beautiful.
So on your day off, just say, hey, where are you at? Come with me to the grocery store. Be with me.
Beautiful.
That's so great. I've always understood that to be discipleship. Not let me teach you something, but let me invite you in to watch something.
Yeah.
And what you're watching in me overflows into teaching moments with you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what about you, Zach? What's a week in the life of Zach
Well,
Stevens?
I'll do like I think the senior leadership part
Sure.
is much less applicable. I'll roll through that. But, we do 4 services on Sunday, so 8:30, 10, 11:30, and then 4:30. So we do that. And then I'll have like my executive level meetings on Mondays. And so I'll do that. But the most important thing really before any of that is I do the gym early because after work it's family
Tell them
time.
what early is.
How
That
early? I
means
feel like
something
you'll-
different to everyone.
I get there at 5:15, and so that's my time.
And it really is every day.
That's my time. So I'll go there, and then it's also when I'm around. It's also whenever it's part of how I get to be around lost people too. Just because there's.
I love
when
that.
you're
Where are
around-
lost people at? Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're not at the church. Not especially not Monday to. Right.
Like,
yeah.
oh, let's
so
go there.
You're there. You do it. So I get to go do that, which is awesome. And then it's my quiet time. So I'll do that. And I usually get to church probably probably about 7:30. And then my schedule is there's nothing on it from 7:30 to either 10 or 11 in the morning.
Yeah, I've heard stuff about that. So is there a reason why you don't have any meetings? 7 to
100, well, that's God's time. So, like, I tithe. Money doesn't matter. Like, I know it matters. Sorry, I don't want to be crazy, but you'd always
the idea
make
of the
more
tithe,
money.
we always make it financial.
Yeah, and so like the first fruits of like my day and stuff, which I got to be careful because God does get my best, but then sometimes I give my family leftovers. But that may be a different podcast. So I do. I've got my time with the Lord, and so that usually goes. I'm usually aiming to get that. I'm usually done 9:30 or 10.
How do you know
Okay.
that's your best time?
It's just when I'm the most productive. Carrie Newhoff has a book called what was it called? We read it together.
At your best?
At Your Best,
Okay.
and which is a killer. Doesn't matter ministry or not. You got to read it.
I love his stuff.
It breaks your time down into red, yellow, green, and
Okay.
so like, hey, when are you the most energized, creative, productive, all the things?
Yeah.
And then put it there. And so like for me,
Aligning your schedule based on
Based on where your brain is at. I think
your
Daniel
flow.
Pink has a thing on that too, where he talks
Yeah.
about like don't do things that take a lot of energy first thing in the morning.
Right.
Like do your emails in the afternoon to trigger
Yeah.
more focus.
And for me,
You
like
know?
people are pretty. It's easy for
Filling,
me to
yeah.
be like there with people.
Okay.
So like I could do that most times.
Yeah.
And so like I could put meetings really whenever. And because of the season I'm in, people know like we have an agenda already set. Like they filled out before. But there's parts of the meeting. Most of the meeting they drive, and then there's parts that But either way, long story short, the part where I give my best is right there in the morning after my work, after I get ready, endorphins flowing,
Yeah.
caffeine a pumping, like I'm there.
Gotcha.
And so I'll do that, and I do that, Monday through Friday. Really,
Great.
is that, and that's the most important part, probably the most applicable as well for the people listening and watching. On Mondays I'll have my executive level meetings.
Yeah, you do all that
and
stuff.
I'm doing sermon prep right after my quiet. So like that quiet time is not sermon prep time.
Yeah.
Good.
That is like time for I'm growing, filling up, and then I can pour out after I fill up.
Yeah, most people, especially those that preach or teach, think that the quiet time, the devotion time is what you're preaching on.
No, it's not.
And my pastor always taught me, you study for yourself, you preach from your overflow.
Yeah.
And you never get up to speak on something you've personally never dealt with, obviously. But at the same time, there's things God speaks to you about, and then there's things God speaks to you about for your church or for your kids, for your ministry.
Yep.
My temptation has always been what he's speaking to me about is for the church.
Right.
Instead
Sometimes
of like,
those are not two in the
yeah,
same.
like so I'm reading like 2 Timothy right now, and it's all about older man speaking to a young pastor.
Yeah.
So I'm reading it for me.
Yeah.
I'm getting corrected. I'm getting rebuked. I'm getting encouraged. I'm not going to show up on Sunday and say, let me tell you about young pastors, everyone.
Right.
It's like we're on something different.
Yeah.
So I think it's so good that you said that's different
Yeah.
from what you do.
100%. And you're really like I don't think you're sitting at his feet like relationally being with them intimately, like if you're trying, because really if you're there to do something.
Yeah.
If the only time you're doing a date night is whenever you're looking to get a little something, like that's a transaction.
100%.
So like I'm not
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be with him for a sermon,
Yeah.
and people know when that's like people that you're talking to, relationships or sermons or whatever.
Yeah. Dude, what's the one, the Gospel in Genesis? That little, you ever read that? It's called The Gospel in Genesis, or The Gospel in the Garden, or something like that. It's just on the 3rd chapter of Genesis. Martyn Lloyd Jones, what do you love about him?
So whenever I did the 2017, that year on the being led by the power of the Holy Spirit, I don't remember which ones it was, but there's like 40 Days of the Holy Spirit. They're on my bookshelf, but like it seemed like he came up constantly. And there was a book. There's like Holy Spirit and Fire, 4 Days of the Holy Spirit, and he wrote one of them, but he was talked about just constantly.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot of like UK
influence in terms of revival history.
And he covered all
Brilliant.
of it, yeah.
Well, now I know what to send you, man.
I can attend the
I got one up on you now.
I already have what I'm sending you after this trip.
Oh, he did.
Good.
Here we go.
Good.
Already
Already
Rachel
done.
write it
Praise the
down.
Lord.
It's already done, man.
Thank you,
It's
man.
already
So
done.
awesome.
I think we love that too about you guys, that you guys do have a real serious passion for like the revivalists before us
Yeah.
and the people before
Absolutely.
us. Like really, it is incredible to like find a friendship. Because listen, most of what I know is because he's sat there and been like, this is what we're studying.
Yeah.
But he does have a real love for like all of the previous revivalists, even us being in Western New York, Second Great Awakening, all that
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah.
Too.
So
So
rich.
I feel like I'm really getting to know you guys this trip. I'm
Yeah.
getting to know your wife more than last year. And so tell us a little bit about that. Like, where did that love come from? Like, I know you guys have traveled and seen
Yeah.
all these different places and spaces. Like, give us some of that.
Well, Revelation 12:11 says that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb. We talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time.
All the blood.
We do the gospel every week.
Yeah.
So we talk about, when you think about Jesus, people can probably tell you the cross or something. So Revelation 12:11, people know that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think that's what it is, but the whole verse says we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. And it actually goes on and says in the same verse, the end of the verse says, and it essentially it built a faith in them where they didn't shrink back from death. And so like you think about, and the death that we're looking at isn't necessarily physical, but it might be professional. It might be like of what people think about us, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, and I just read something that said for the first time is in the United States anyway, in American culture, it's going to start to cost you something to follow Jesus now.
Yep. I
And
agree.
it always costs you something, but now there's a social cost.
Yeah, it's
that-
different.
That's coming along.
Yeah, but if you'll have a hold of the testimonies.
That's
so
right.
like when we told the testimony earlier about River,
Yeah.
Elisha River, it just hits different. Like there's a reminder that he's real, that this is true.
Yeah, look what he's done.
This faith building, and then we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Hebrews 11 and 12. But the reason that we're so passionate about it is because we know what we're called to.
Great.
So which I think we'll probably talk about that here in a little bit. But like we know what we're called to, and so what we did is we were like, okay, who's been called to something similar, and let's go look
Powerful.
and see
It's
it
good.
and read it and know. And so when people are like, hey, that can't happen, and we're like, hey, super respectfully, what about John Wesley? What about Finney? What
Wigglesworth.
about Moody? And we can just go like, what about it? And then so like we were, which we could talk about, we did get to go to London, and when everybody else went to see some sites, we went to John
You went to go
Wesley's
see
house.
John Wesley's. So stop
We're
right there.
so cool.
Would you?
I love this.
Whoa. So would you say
That
John
sounds
Wesley?
like a date for us
Yes.
too. Not the eye. John
Yeah.
Wesley's prayer
Yeah,
corner.
but like,
Yeah.
but you're looking at some little thing that no one cares about.
Oh,
Yeah.
no one cares.
Would
about
you
this.
say John Wesley is one of your top influences? Like,
Yeah. John Wesley is definitely up there. And so John Wesley, and you may were going to ask this, but it'll dovetail
Yeah.
why we're so passionate about John Wesley and what he did. So like our passion is we want to equip Christ followers to win their world, and that's not like we know exactly what that means. So it's not just fancy talk or anything like that, but. So we want to equip Christ followers to win their world. So Craig Rochelle has a book came out it was read on recently called "Lead Like It Matters," and which is a killer book. No matter where you're at, what you're doing, lead like it matters. And essentially, towards the end of the book, he says how you keep it, because companies have it and lose it, churches have it and lose it, people have it and lose it. So it's like, how do you keep it? And he says you get ruined over something, you get wrecked over something, and so whenever you look at the people who don't lose it. Like they'll fight for it as culture changes. They change to adapt to keep it. And so we are ruined. We are wrecked. We think about it like when we want to quit and all that kind of stuff. We're ruined over people who are on their way to hell right now. If Jesus comes back and they're being a good person, none of that's going to get it. So like we're wrecked over that. And our parents were wrecked over that. But they're as the Lord has built us up under them, there's an addition to something. We're wrecked. First, we're wrecked over the lost.
Yeah.
And second, we're wrecked over people who are on their way to stand before Jesus with nothing to show for the salvation they have. Can you imagine that, bro? Can you imagine? A lot of people care about finances. Can you imagine having an angel investor that just put an infinity sign in your bank account, and then you've got to give an account, and you're like, well, I didn't do anything with it. Actually, I lived like a pauper. Like I didn't do jack.
Yeah.
And so like we're like, when we see people who they'll stand before him.
Yeah.
And first of all, we won't have the theological discussion around whether they're getting in or not, because according to James, faith without works is dead. That's a real discussion, right? But there are people who are making it by the skin of their teeth. Like they will stand before Jesus, and when Jesus comes back, it says that he'll wipe every tear from their eye. Why would he have to wipe tears away other than they're having the realization of the reality of who their God was?
Yeah.
And they wasted it.
There's fear and trembling, I think, too.
On a 401k, on their kids' soccer games. I love my kids. I love that we got to build this house. I love this stuff, but it'll be nothing.
Well, and it's just a shadow. And I think we forget that.
Yeah.
Like this, we're so happy and, hey, it's so exciting. You have a dream. I'm like, this is a shadow of what is to come when the Lord comes and restores and redeems everything in the new heaven and the new earth.
And you see that in all those great voices from the 17th century, 18th century, even before. Like I was just studying about William Tyndale, preaching about how he died.
Oh, yeah.
And just how people died shouting and worshiping compared to the fear Christians of death today.
Yeah.
And it's like those guys knew back then it's all or nothing, baby. Eternity matters.
Yeah.
Today, you don't want to bash our country, but there is a sense of Christianity's got very commercialized now.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, how does this help you?
Right.
Instead of like, dude, you're going to damnation alone.
Right.
Without God, you don't respond.
Yeah, and what else matters, And so, like, even whenever you think about, like we talked a little bit ago, like being a Christian is going to cost you something, not in comparison.
I had that conversation with my sister this morning. She's reading Amos for the first time.
Yeah.
She's like, persecution.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, are you asking about American persecution? Or are you asking about persecution that happens everywhere else?
But I was saying a little bit differently. In comparison to what we'll receive, it's nothing. So other things I love to read are like the books like Jesus Freaks or Fox's Book of the Martyrs are hard to follow, but you read it. And there's this peace that surpasses understanding with these people that are sacrificing their life and all this kind of stuff. Like there's just, in comparison to the reward that's received, like Paul said, I count all this as nothing in comparison to what I'm going to get just from knowing him, much less the rewards. Jesus said, you give up father and mother, whatever, for, 10 times. Like, he's going to take care of us.
Right.
And so, like, what it costs us is nothing in comparison. So, like, with what I loved about Wesley, and the guys who's kind of like Jonathan Edwards and these people, but the Wesley brothers, so I have a brother, but I love, you can tell, like, just being around, like, I love being with men and women who are about the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like that's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. Like we're about it. If we we're about it either way. So, but he had a brother. He comes over. I don't know if you know this.
No.
Wesley comes over and just does terribly. Like he comes over when America started. Goes to Georgia. He's going to win all the Indians.
Yeah.
Just.
Not seeing anything.
He does not do good.
He does terribly.
Tanks.
Right. Tanks goes back. He doesn't even think he's saved. Going back because he's like nothing happened.
Right.
He meets these guys on the way back called the Moravians, and the Moravians, unreal, right? This is worth studying. So their ship is going like huge storm. Their ship's going down, and Wesley's freaking out, and the Moravians are worshiping, and he's like, "Y'all have something I don't have." And so again, believers listening, like when we're living our life, and like even when it's crap. like people should be able to say, God, you have something that I don't have.
Yeah.
Right?
Beyond that. Yeah.
And so either way, so he realizes that, goes back, filled with the Spirit, heart strangely warmed. But whenever John Wesley does,
Is that mine?
It is, yeah.
They're back. Whenever
They're back.
whenever John Wesley, so he is the father of the Methodist movement. And so obviously very different than what we see in Methodism today.
Yeah.
But why it's called Methodist is because John Wesley would raise up these he called them preacher boys, right?
Yeah.
He'd raise them up, and John Wesley would, he rode like 100,000 miles, preached hundreds of thousands of sermons, like crazy stuff, raise up people to go do it. And then he put they called them classes, and people would be discipled and developed to win he didn't use this language, but to win their world.
Yeah.
And so John Wesley wasn't just a gifted preacher or a grinder or a worker. Like he was bent
In the trenches.
but also a multiplication.
It's great.
And so the gospel is multiplication.
Right.
You know? And so that's part of why he means a lot to us.
Well, and I
Huge.
think anytime you look at these guys' stories, they all fail. It's like when you look at Jonathan Edwards and he has this famous sermon, and everyone's like, sinners at the hand of an angry God, where all of like the fire
spider
falls.
web of your self-righteousness,
That's right.
right?
And people are like, before he's even finished with the sermon, they're weeping, begging him to tell us, how do we have a relationship with the King of Kings? Like, how do we be rescued? And he had preached that sermon before, and nothing happened.
Wow.
So that wasn't the first.
That was it, Wesley.
Yeah, not Wesley.
That
No,
was-
it's
No,
Edwards.
Edwards. She's talking about
that's
Edwards.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she's talking about
But
Edwards.
I'm saying, like, when you look at these guys, hey, John Wesley didn't just walk in and he was the greatest evangelist. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He didn't just start the Methodist movement. He failed. And they experienced, like, there's this moment where they had to reconcile with the Lord that it is not about me. And by my own efforts, I can do nothing. And for me, it gives me no fear of the future.
Right.
I'm not afraid of the future.
Yeah.
And I know what the circumstances say, and they don't write the narrative for me.
Right.
I have seen through, not just in our, like our lineage and in Zach's parents, like watching what the Lord has done, but when I look at the testimonies of men and women who have seen moves of God,
Yeah.
the Lord is faithful.
Come on, he'll do it
going to
again.
continue to show up. When you read, even in Revelation, like when he comes back and we're in the end times, God is still, like people are still
Yeah.
turning to
Spirit's
Jesus.
being poured
Yeah.
out on all flesh.
Yes.
You're seeing incredible miracles, signs and wonders on both sides.
So why
You know
would
what I'm
I be
saying?
afraid?
Yeah.
I look, so like in my, like right now, like I know like there's all this stuff going on around the world
Sure.
and people are overwhelmed and they're
Absolutely.
grieved, and we should be. And in my spirit, I am so excited.
Yeah,
It's
leaned
just-
in,
So
looking.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard because like Zach's like, hey, we're like, because there is a natural thing. We have to deal with the natural. But for me, I just look, I'm like, gosh, I am so excited because I know.
This is the time.
I know what's coming.
Yeah.
I know like there are things in the quiet places and the secret places that God has spoken to me. And Randy and I were talking about this the other day. I've known Jesus since I was 7 years old, and his voice has always been the same. It's never changed.
I love that.
Always kind,
Wow.
always gracious, clear,
Yeah.
sometimes disciplinary, but and all of those things that I've received, I know what I know. So I think this is why in Proverbs 31, when it talks about, she doesn't have fear of the future, it's because she knows the voice of the Lord.
Yeah.
And he tells her exactly what she needs when she needs it.
Come on.
And so you don't have
She
to
knows
be
the
afraid.
voice.
So when things
great,
are not
Rachel.
good, so in your life or in your church or wherever you are, and you're looking at it, you say things are not good, and I know they're not good, and I'm not saying that it's all okay. Like it sucks.
Yeah.
I know. I was just gonna say like you have to know the end of the story.
Yeah.
Whatever the end is you redeemed and restored in with Jesus, and He said He's gonna satisfy your soul,
Yeah.
not your flesh,
Good.
your soul,
Yeah.
and your spirit.
Wow, because that's a good thought. Because everything right now is about how do I satisfy my flesh, but when
My
Jesus is
relational
returning, you ain't gonna
needs,
care
right.
about the flesh.
Well, and if
You
you're in the
know?
presence of the Lord, it is like we are. When we read the Beatitudes, like the things of the world, like where you are weak in your flesh, and there are the things of the Spirit, and like that is the Lord will elevate those,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that you can walk in such a way where the world looks and see something different. But if all we're focused on, like we prostitute the church, we use the church as a prostitute, we go on Sunday and makes ourselves feel good, and then we leave her for the rest of the week, we abandon her, we take what we want, and some of us, like, we give, and we feel real good about it because we actually tithe. We're like, ooh, I put my money where my mouth is. And when I look at the history of the men and women who have come before us, they proved that God is who he says he is. He's going to do what he says he could do. The word doesn't return void.
Yes.
So when we read the scripture and we see the men and women, those revivalists, these moves of God, Amy Semple McPherson, John Wesley, Jonathan Edwards, Moody, like even in America, like God is not done with us.
Yeah. So good.
So we can walk in faith, and it's not being naive.
Yeah.
It's having spiritual eyes, heavenly eyes, and looking beyond what's happening here in the natural and saying, I am a supernatural being, having a natural experience, and I'm going to choose the joy of the Lord today.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So good.
Love that. So as we end, what would you tell people, speak specifically to leaders now? They've got people in their life that look to them for wisdom about Jesus, scriptures. I'm not talking pastors, but people that they get the calls about things. How would you tell people to be leading in this day and hour? As we see the signs of the times, as everyone's talking about the end times, what would you two, like evangelistic centered people, what would you say?
So we're pretty simple people. We like to keep it really simple. So we said earlier, we exist to win the world by equipping Christ followers to win their world, starting with 1% Tennessee. Like that's our vision, right? And so whenever we say win, like win the world, that's not just something that we say. So like we want to create a win-win culture.
Okay.
So W-I-N. So what is next, in your walk with God, and who is next for you to impact for eternity? And so you never outgrow those steps. So like we've been leading in church, following following Jesus personally, even longer than that. You never outgrow those steps. So if you'll get quiet and you'll ask the Lord, hey, what is next in my walk with you?
Yeah.
And who is next for me to impact for eternity? He's gonna get you there. And actually, you talk about leaders in the church, even business leaders. That who is next question has a double meaning. There's who is next from an evangelistic perspective. There's also a who is next from a successor perspective.
Sure.
There's no success without a successor. And but waking up every day asking, what is next in my walk with God, and who is next, but then creating a culture, because people can't win the world. They're not going to win the world if they can answer that question for themselves.
I love that.
And help other people answer it.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to help. It's one thing to answer for yourself, and it's a big deal, and it needs to be celebrated, and God's really proud of you, and all that. But part of it is helping other people answer that too. Hey, what is next for their walk with God?
Yeah.
And who is next for them to impact for eternity? And that who is next question, that's not a year in. That's not after you go through a discipleship course.
It's right now.
The day.
Yeah.
The day you get saved.
Right now.
Your next question is,
love it.
who is next? And so like whenever we talk about or think about how would we, it's not how would we teach people to lead or ask people to lead. It is how we're doing it. So that's the culture of our church. More than that's the culture of our life. And so like if you bring the kids out here and you say, hey, what's our values? They're gonna say love God, love people, discover purpose, and win our world. And so today we were like, hey, we got to head back. And JL, who's a beach bum like her mom, she'd live out there. She was like, why don't we live here? And River goes, we have to win our world.
Come on now.
And so cool. They know it. And so that's the prayer before they leave the house in the morning. And so but winning your world, it's one person at a time, and it's what is next in my walk with God.
Great, bro.
And who is next for me to impact for eternity. And everybody has kind of their thing, but we just believe in people. And so we love John Maxwell. John Maxwell says, hey, I'm John, I'm your friend. And it's like, hey, we believe in you. Like that's who we are. So we believe that you're called to win your world. But that's what we would say.
That's cool, dude. Rachel, anything to add?
Well, I would just, in a world of platforms where everybody's looking to do a big thing, you're not called to do, we're like, well, what am I called to do? What am I called to do? Those are assignments. Hey, what's my assignment for this season? Those are going to change. You're always called to be a follower of Jesus. So if maybe it's not about building a platform and doing a big thing and leading some crazy, I'm going to start a business, make $1 million. Maybe it's just, hey, be a wife that loves your husband and raises her children to love Jesus.
Faithfulness.
And so I feel like sometimes we're all about all this other stuff. Like, no, what is next in my walk with God? How do I follow Jesus today, right now, the best? And who is next for me to raise up in such a way that they should go?
And usually both those things are the things you don't want to do. What is next?
No,
Right.
Take some sacrifice. You got to start thinking beyond what you're
You
currently
want to fast?
experiencing.
That's probably what you should be doing.
Ain't lying.
The devil ain't telling you to fast.
Who's that person that you're still mad at? That's who is next for you to impact for eternity. Go and apologize to him.
Great.
Yeah.
Or whenever you think about what's next in your walk with God, I love to ask, what's the last thing the Holy Spirit asked you to do you said no to? And then why would you ask him for something else? There's still food on your plate.
Yeah, you still got to take care of the first thing.
So let me
good.
let me give you a story. You're gonna want to clip this, put it up front, then people will watch the whole thing. But everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about whenever I knew I want to win. People at different levels of competitive, all the things, right? Rachel is not as, but she likes to win. I want to win at whatever it is. I was playing.
I'm just glad you let me play.
There you go. Just glad
I'm
to
just
be on
happy
the
to have a
field.
spot.
But
Somebody let me come. I'm so
everybody
glad.
wants to win. So we moved to Louisiana. We moved from Louisiana to Tennessee, and me and Mike are going to a new school. Me and Micah are my brother. He's 16 months older, but we're rounder at this point.
Okay.
Well, at this season, my brother and sister, I have an older sister too, they had told me that this haircut would be cool. Now, I have really curly hair. You can't tell I can keep it short. But they told me just to have bangs and to buzz the rest of my head. So I did that. So
We're going to need to insert a picture for proof.
your boys got bangs. So not only that, dude, I am as wide as I am tall. Like my little rat, and I've got these bangs, bro. Like if I straighten them
You are
out,
from Louisiana.
it'd be down to here. Well, we're in Tennessee at this time, and my head is buzzed, but my hair's curly, so it just poofs up right here on my forehead like a goober, bro. And so we're at school, and we're getting on the bus, and Micah, my brother, he was super skittish when he was younger, so I was always taking up for Micah. I had some rage issues, probably because of the poof, and that's what we called the poof. And so me and Micah are at a new school. We get back on the bus. We've never ridden the bus before because where we're in Louisiana had a Christian school, so we get the back seat on the bus. One of the first ones on there on the way home, and you can hear like some murmuring. And we're in like the elementary, middle, and high school all around the same bus. Well, there's some murmuring because the seat we're sitting in, because apparently that's the bus bully's seat, right? And so me and Mike are sitting in there, and last person on the bus bully comes up. Hey, you're in my seat, Micah. Big wussy gets up and moves. And I just have this about me. I'm like, your name's not on this seat. There's no assigned seat. This is the bus.
Isn't that it?
Right?
That was the comeback.
You're
Your
that
name's
guy.
not on it.
You're that guy.
Yeah, whatever, man. And so grabs my hair, grabs the poof.
Put his hand on the
Grabs
poof.
the poof. And so I've got a brother. You grab the poof, it's game time.
You getting poofed.
So I give the wax on, right, and just whack.
Yeah.
And then I pick my round body up on the two seats, as you do,
Yeah.
and double kick right in the chest. Just boom, Bruce Lee. And yeah, it was awesome. It's awesome, man. It was awesome. We're some of the last people on the bus. Nobody's talking on the bus, man. People, it's amazing, man.
The giant has just been slain.
Oh,
Yeah, dude.
oh,
You felt
David
like David.
Goliath,
They're
bro.
picking his
People
pockets out,
are
they're
losing
taking his stuff.
their minds. Oh man, oh yeah, because they've been terrorizing the village for a minute, and
Yeah.
so and the poof has it is awesome.
The all-powerful poof.
That's exactly right. It's like Samson, really, but on the front. And so we get home. It's a long driveway, and so Micah's running down the driveway to go tell Dad.
Yeah.
I've got a real snowman body going on, so I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to run. I'm like, Micah, don't tell Dad without me. And so I'm so out of breath, man. I get in there just in time, and Micah is telling Dad that I beat up the bus bully, and I can see like Dad, like he's like in this
Torn.
He doesn't know. He's like, we're not supposed to get in fights, but so all this kind of stuff. And in that moment, I'm like, this is what winning feels like. Like I'm about to start playing football, but I'm
Yeah.
I want this.
I like this feeling.
I want this feeling.
Yeah.
And then Micah goes, yeah, Dad, she was huge. And
Jesus, we missed a whole part.
I'll be honest. It didn't take it away from me.
Dude, you're like, I'm
First
proud
of all,
still.
her name was Delilah. She'd been held back. She was humongous, bro. She was huge.
He was a bully
He
nonetheless.
was a bully nonetheless. And
Wow.
so it was kind of like David Goliath, but it was more like the Poof and Delilah. But either way, man, I took care
Dude.
of business. And
Yeah.
the Lord has just put a passion for winning in my heart ever since
tied
then,
all that
man.
up like that? Yeah.
All we do is win no matter what.
So
man.
you are somewhat of like a Tennessee legend.
Yeah, dude, yeah. People,
Proof will live beyond your years.
yeah, 100%, man. You
So
walk, you go to
good.
Tennessee, man. The poofs everywhere,
I wonder
man.
if
There's
kids on that
shrines of the
bus, if you
poof.
like find one, be like, do you remember that day?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
We
my
gotta get him a little front bang clip on
Yes.
to wear next time he feels like he needs some faith.
Yes. So, yeah, man.
That is hilarious.
hilarious.
I'm gonna find one.
We'll find one.
We love you
We're not sending you
guys.
books. We're sending you bang.
Yeah, I wear them, man. So I've told that story at the church, and one of our campus pastors, Jason Hines, Jason was some of our best friends.
Yeah.
We
I
love
told
him.
that story at a youth conference we were doing, and like 5 minutes later, all the students have stopped laughing, and he can't. He's on the
can't
front
stop.
row. I have to say, you know, like when you're student conference,
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
tell kids to get out.
Right.
I have to say, hey, Pastor Jason, could
You're
you go to the back of the room?
You're
For real,
interrupting.
I had to ask him to leave.
He had to leave. He could not
hilarious.
So
stop laughing
every
about
time
it.
he sees this story coming, I can see him like
That's
grabbing
a
a hold of
golden
people.
story.
He's so.
You're like, oh, no.
Hey,
Well, even
here
you
it
told me
comes.
this like 2 days ago. I was asking him on the beach. I was like, "Would you guys ever be down to do a podcast?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, sure." I'm like, "I have my stuff," and you go, "I got to tell this story." First thing he said.
Winning, man. It's,
Oh
it's in the
man, we
heart.
love y'all
In the
so
heart.
much.
We love you too.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
love
thank
you
you guys
guys.
for doing this. Okay, so where can people listening connect? What is your podcast? Where can they find it?
We have
You guys-
the Purpose podcast.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
We're at Faith Promise Church, FAITH.
awesome.
And
Do you guys have are people good to find you on social media?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us where to
The
find.
Zach Stevens, ZAC Stevens with a PH, and then the Rachel Stevens makes
Perfect.
it pretty easy.
Yep.
They are people that are worth listening to. You guys, seriously.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
was sitting next to Rachel on the beach for like an hour. We're
She's a
just
bomb.
going back and forth, and I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
seriously love you guys. Love
We
what
do
you guys
love
are
you.
We
about.
love y'all.
Thank you guys for tuning into this week episode of Good News Podcast. Hopefully, we will have them back again. We're going to chase them down in Knoxville.
Yeah,
Do
we'll
it.
come get you.
Yes.
We gotta finish this
Shrine.
revivalist
That's
thing.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for watching. We love y'all, and we'll see you next time. Done deal.
Good deal.
Bro, that was amazing.
That was
So
a great way to
fun.
end it.